Sorry, I'm just finishing up. I just had a funeral for my phone. I didn't have a name for my phone. 11E, maybe because it's an iPhone 11. But man, am I gonna miss that phone. That phone gave me so much dopamine, so much fake happiness, and also a lot of stress. And that's one of the reasons that I ended up quitting using my phone. So this is a bit of a different video here on the channel, but it is sort of app related. And the reason that I wanted to make this video was to explain to you how I had managed to limit my usage on my iPhone from using it as my daily driver for most things to literally just using it when I have to. The reason that I ended up starting doing this was because I had seen a video from Matt Diella where he had attempted to quit his phone for 30 days and he ended up replacing it with a smartwatch, which I believe in the video, based on the context that I can pick up, was the Apple Watch Series 7 or 8 44mm version. This ended up having cellular with it, and what he did was he essentially took his Apple Watch and replaced it for all of the day-to-day usage of his iPhone. Now for me, as somebody who's pretty in the Mac ecosystem, this was very intriguing to me because I have a Mac, iPhone, and was like, I don't think I ever need an Apple Watch because I have my phone. But then after watching the video, I inversed the thought process in my head and said, well, if I had an Apple Watch, I guess I wouldn't need a phone, right? Then I said, that's ridiculous. There's no way that that's possible. Let's talk about how dumb that sounds. And then I realized, wait a second, the majority of things that I should do on a computer are on my phone in some sort of tangential way, like Slack or, doing Notion builds or capturing tasks, that sort of thing. Most of that stuff should just be on my computer and I should interact with it for the most part on the computer. So I then thought, wait a second, is it really possible that I don't need my phone except for a few things? Which, if you stick around to the end of this video, I will give you the cons and the main things you probably will still need a phone for, but I will also give you a workaround or two that I'm working on to make sure that, I may not need it nearly at all. Anyways, I do believe that the first thing I'd have to mention is that the Apple Watch that I ended up purchasing for this experiment was the Apple Watch Series 7 with GPS plus cellular on the 41mm version. I got the midnight edition. However, the sports band is what originally came with it, and I found an alternative stainless steel Milanese loop that slides on my wrist and just does a lot better for me. And this guy is more than what I've ever needed for the majority of what my phone did prior. Because I'm fortunate enough to have purchased Apple AirPods before, this allows me to utilize so many different functions from my Apple ecosystem without having to try that hard. I utilize Siri, I utilize a lot of the different functionality that comes with talking to her or using her for messages, phone calls, voice memos. All of these little things end up getting augmented by my AirPods, and that's a big plus. But something I wanted to point out regarding this process was that I really had to take a step back and think, what necessarily could I do on my Apple Watch that I could do equally as normal on my phone? And then what were those few things that I wasn't willing to compromise on in order to make my experience better when it comes to task capturing, idea capturing, those sort of things? And first and foremost, I realized that texts and calls were actually not that hard for me to make this transition. And one of the reasons for that is that my Apple Watch was great, but was also augmented by, like I said, the AirPods Pros and the fact that I have a MacBook Pro, which utilizes iMessage. Now, I'm in a great situation where the majority of the people in my life that I'm close with utilize a iPhone in general. This allowed me to text in, large amounts with people that I needed to using my MacBook Pro if I needed to, and send, links to them and whatnot, which honestly is a better experience on the MacBook than it is on the phone. And then from there, I thought about phone calls, which frankly are literally the same when you use this. You just say, you just say what number you need to call, and then it will call through the AirPods. For those of you that are unfamiliar with how this works prior to getting a cellular service on it, it essentially piggybacks off of your phone. I actually haven't started paying for cellular yet because I haven't been in a situation where I'd really want it, but it is on the bucket list. And the only reason that I really use my phone now, in the very small instances that I do, are honestly for phone calls to companies that have landlines and Apple CarPlay for maps. That's it. I'll get into some of the solutions for that later. However, I will say that is a pretty minimal difference from what I ended up having in my life prior. My phone was pretty much my everything. I ended up having to go through a really self-reflective process after having watched those videos on quitting your phone for an Apple Watch to realize that having better access to Slack and access to email, and even YouTube was something that was making me more unhappy than not. It's funny, people close in my life have made some comments recently that I just seem in like a mildly happier mood. Like I do have something that I've been working on in life where I'm just like mildly disgruntled, and it's not with people in my life. I'm pretty happy with like personal relationships and whatnot, but when it comes to like my business, I'm happy that this is my job, but I'm like always like, I want to get to that next level. It's something that I have to work on. And when I started getting away from the fatigue of pings coming through and the fatigue of emails being available on my phone, and straight up just not really seeing notifications because Apple Watch notifications aren't a thing when it comes to just like it showing on your screen. If you turn it on Do Not Disturb, it just doesn't show anything unless you swipe. I lost all sense of the moment at some point when I had a phone. And I think a lot of us don't realize this, but when I switched to using my Apple Watch mainly, the moment was much easier to enjoy in public, in private. And I think the private part's actually more important because most of the time I am in private, because when you work every day at home, with some exceptions to go to coffee shops, it's difficult to find time where you're not surrounded by distractions. It's difficult to find time where you're not distracted from your day-to-day because you want to look at your phone and because you want to monkey brain on YouTube shorts and whatnot. All that extra information for me wasn't doing anything. The extra pings weren't doing anything. I can check them when I want. I don't have Slack open until I need to, and it just changes the way that I interact with my daily life now. I text people a little less frequently, and they're only really the people that matter to me. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean like literally the frequency of physical text sent throughout one day is decreased. The amount of people I talk to is not decreased. And that's because I don't mindlessly just go on my messages app on my computer. That's weird. The phone is an addictive product. It wants you to be on there. It makes you excited to be on there. And the friction that it takes to text on here is just enough to where I'm like, I don't want to text for hours on end unless I'm talking to someone that like I really care about. And the only downside that I've really seen from this is that for things like Notion not being on my Apple Watch and other solid productivity apps, there's usually a workaround when it comes to Apple shortcuts. Like I made a shortcut that allows me to quick capture a task with a voice message that then parses it out into multiple tasks if need be into Notion. Like that's one of the best automations I've ever made. And it was made out of the idea of, hey, Apple Watch, I know you don't have Notion, but we can get stuff from my Apple Watch into Notion. I can figure it out. And truthfully, I'm just like in a better mood now. It's been about 90 days since I did quit this silly thing, and my silly thing, I mean my phone. And outside of using it for specific phone calls that I need to manually type the number into, or Apple CarPlay, or the very odd circumstance in public when I whip it out to look up a location for maps as well, I really haven't had any issues with this watch chain. And I think it's because I really am trying to get away from using my phone, because I understand what a hindrance it's been to my life. And I'm honestly happier. So like if happiness and fulfillment aren't the meaning to life while also reaching your max potential, I don't know what it is. I'd like to thank Apple Watch for creating a product that is really good as a companion, but even better as a solo option, because it does not give you enough. Like I can't go on YouTube. I can't do all the device related things. This is like just the practical stuff. And if they could make a phone with just the practical stuff, that would be a much better experience. But naturally, you're gonna monkey brain and put on the non-natural stuff because, I'm a human and you need to have a crazy amount of friction mentally and physically in order to stop that from happening. But this experience has been great. I really recommend anybody try it out. I haven't been in a better mood about a lot of things in a while. And I think it's literally because I just have less pressure, because the day-to-day distraction of all the bad things that come with having a phone end up bothering me. And now that I don't have that as a part of my life, it doesn't bother me anymore. Now, a pro tip that I would say to fix the whole Apple Maps, Apple CarPlay thing is if you are going through this exercise, it does actually help to delete everything off of your phone that's not the main apps. Like that is kind of the solution to using your phone only when you have to for those circumstances. If you get rid of everything else, it's gonna make you not stressed when you end up getting the random notifications on your phone when you're bringing it around and whatnot. Like if you make a commitment that this is the thing you're using, you will have more friction to like download all the apps again on your phone. And that's something I'd highly recommend is just basically have maps and, maybe some small things like the Amazon app to check whether you have a package delivered, like minor utility stuff that isn't going to turn you into a social media fiend, because that's the real hard part with this stuff. And I would recommend getting the cellular version if it makes sense for you. I'm debating on getting it. I'm on the borderline of getting it soon in order for me to go out and walk about without my phone attached to me, because it's usually in a backpack and I just piggyback off of it to save the $10 a month. But It's up to you. Don't worry about it. If you like this video and want to see more about how to improve your life from a productivity or productivity app standpoint, make sure to check out this YouTube channel, not on your Apple Watch, but on your phone or on your computer, because I don't use phones anymore. That being said, thanks for watching, and we'll see you after watching this video on how to improve your productivity skills even more.